What's up, everybody? Back from vacation. I'm here ready and raring to go for more content for you guys to not receive in your subscription inboxes. Thanks, YouTube. Appreciate it for putting AI underneath our videos so that people can summarize an already short summarization that's usually contextualized within the video. Good job, YouTube. Thanks very much for that. I'm sure that's not playing any havoc with the algorithm or anything for anybody. The vacation was fun. Super fun. I reconnected with my dad, with my sister, and with my brother. I now have a family again. And it was delightful and a little bit emotional. But enough of that. Let's get into some content, I guess. Seriously tempted to just make a video based on some of the really stupid comments I get from dumb goth chicks on Instagram, because quite frankly, there is so much there to create content from. I may do it next. I'm not sure, but we'll give it a go. Like, wasting your time responding to comments on an Instagram reel that you've made is the most futile waste of time ever. Just don't bother, right? You just post what you want to say and then move on. If they don't get it, then that's their problem. But if you do want to say something about it, if you do want to respond to some of the stupidity, then monetize it with ads and put it up on YouTube and make content out of it. But until then, let's just go over to TikTok and let's just see what the goths are doing. Maybe they're getting braver. I should have got my hair cut before I came back and filmed this. Didn't have enough time.
There is a video where people were like debating what age group elder emos fall into, and I don't think there's like a definitive answer, but if you did not have a MySpace, you ain't it.
That's interesting, because as I mentioned before, things like elder goth, elder emo, baby bat, these things are kind of arbitrary, relatively ambiguous, very ambiguous in fact, entirely undefined. I guess arbitrary then. But this is an interesting proposition. If you didn't have a MySpace, then you can't qualify for elder emo. That's an event that you had to be a part of in order to qualify for this title. I mean, I would like to propose or put forth the question, what will be the next qualifier for elder emo? Is there only one event in all of history that will ever qualify anyone for elder emo, and no matter how old an emo from this generation becomes, they will never become elder emo? Is this just an assumption, or is this just an acceptance that emo is dead? There was one event that can qualify you for elder emo, and then it's now over. If you missed it, you missed it. I'm curious, what's the next event going to be for an elder emo qualification? But let's have a look at goth here real quick. If there was going to be something that qualifies you for elder goth, what event or moment in subcultural history would that be? I'm gonna offer one out here, just off the top of my head. If you can remember before goth became this political leftist echo chamber, where you've got that ugly pride flag everywhere, closely associated with appropriating wars that have nothing to do with you in order to virtue signal your morality. If you remember goth before that kind of stuff, before it was about your flags and dying on hills of political matters that have nothing to do with you or anyone you know, before it was a moral crusade, before it was something to be overtaken, hijacked, and forced to cater to your every political ideology. If you remember that version of goth, then I think maybe you get to qualify for elder goth. Or perhaps far more simply, if you had a Vampire Freaks account, then you probably are hurtling towards elder goth status at this point. If you had a Vampire Freaks account and you were scrambling every morning to the front page to see if you'd made top 10 or top 5 goth boys or girls or whatever, then yeah, you probably are hurtling towards elder goth status. Also, weirdly, Vampire Freaks completely and utterly void of anything political. Maybe the occasional individual was there talking about politics, but not from a goth perspective, just from an individual perspective. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying when I managed to get through the entire goth subculture without having to signal any of my political morals? It was like everything else. Do you remember what I was saying about that kind of stuff? How I made it this far, and only now this shit's popping up? Do you remember that? And then the typical gaslighting. It's like, it's always been there. It's always been there. Maybe you just weren't actually it if you weren't part of it. It's gaslighting. It's gaslighting.
The most goth thing that you can do is let people be whoever the they want to be.
Including conservatives. I'm familiar with this goth couple. I've literally had no interaction with them whatsoever or heard anything political come out of their mouths. So my judgment of them is just going to be indifferent and purely based on the content that they create. And this is not referring to them specifically, but more people who tend to use that phrasing more often than not, don't mean other people that don't think like them. It's like, you can be whatever you want within the subculture. That's a lie. They're lying to you. It's not that you can't be whatever you want. You have to be what they want. You have to be their version of anything you want to be. It's this weird sense, this weird perception of diversity where it's like, you can be anything as long as you're not straight, white, or conservative. You have to be gay. You have to have some kind of racial mix. You have to fuck with your gender a bit. You have to agree with radical gender ideology even if you aren't trans yourself. The erasure of female spaces in sports. Because trans rights apparently trumps female rights. You have to be pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine, pro-Muslim. Even though these cultures are not pro-anything that we are. You have to be anti-Israel and anti-Jew. But not like the Jewish Hollywood elite anti-Jew, like anti-Israel Jew. And that's the perfect kind of diversity. It's utterly ridiculous. This idea of diversity is just completely distorted. Diversity used to mean some of these elements included into general society. Things like corporate structures, social groups, these kinds of things. But when everything needs to be that, it's no longer diversity anymore. It's now just your people. Everywhere. As if adding a white male conservative into the mix would somehow lessen the diversity. What are you talking about? And I know I keep going on about it, man, but I just all I can see is Dustin's dumbass face in my head every time I say it, every time I bring it up. But there's a reason why. There's a reason why they're now enforcing this political aspect to goth repeatedly, separate from any of the music, any of the aesthetic, any of the history, anything at all. It's the reason why it's now its own standalone point that needs to be enforced within goth. It's like, you have to agree with the ideology, you have to agree with the goth politics, the politics that goths believe. The reason why they've had to start insisting on that shit is because the music, Dusty, is not political. It's not enough to keep conservatives or non-lefties out of goth. It's not enough. It's not enough. There's so much. In fact, the majority of goth music from 1977 and onwards is very, very not political. If you have to insist that there is now a political ideology that you need to abide by in order to take part in the subculture, it usually means the subculture itself is not political enough by itself. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to reiterate this. You wouldn't have to state this as something that is a prerequisite for the subculture. It would just exist on its own. It would be an innate quality of the subculture. The music itself would be enough, being like, yeah, writing jangly goth music about the politics of the time and all that kind of 1970s, 80s crap singing that they used to do is crap singing. A lot of it was crap singing. Like Bela Lugosi's Dead was like one of the biggest goth songs. She's in Parties. Almost the entirety of the Unknown Pleasures album by Joy Division. Almost all of it. Almost the entire album. So yeah, well, Susie was talking about female rights. Yeah, she was. None of the other bands were. Maybe the occasional other band was singing about female rights, maybe because there was a woman in it, I guess. But how about this? What's Arabian Nights about? Something tells me that Susie back in 1980 wouldn't have been pro-Palestine. I heard a rumor. What have you done to her? It's a criticism of female treatment in the Middle East. Do you agree with that? Here's how you know you're goth. Here's how you know you're a goth, right? Here's how you, well, at least here's how you know you have too many black clothes. Right behind me is a big pile of black laundry. I can recognize, I can identify what each and every single item of clothing is based on just how the fabric looks. The slight difference in the materials. The slight shade differences between each t-shirt or pants or sweater or whatever. I don't need to like check each item to see what it is. I could tell you what it is just by looking at its crumpled form on the floor. I definitely think that's the sign of a very experienced goth, was when you could just look at the big pile of clothing in your room and just be like, there's the Disturbia top, and there's those pants I got from Vinted. I think that's probably the sign of like an experienced elite goth that knows what they're talking about. That's been doing this for quite some time. But there really is also, and I haven't seen this meme in quite some time, but the meme was when your blacks don't match. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, because ultimately there is no such thing as like black, right? Black is usually the the deepest color of certain types of certain colors, right? Like red, blue, or green. And as these colors fade, you see more of the underlying tone. You want a blue shade of black, you want a blue black, because when that fades out, it tends to fade out grayer, more vintage looking. However, if you're spiral direct, which I very swiftly stopped wearing back in the day. Here's a picture of me wearing something from Spiral Direct. I did have a fair few really cool things from them, but unfortunately, they use a red-based black, so when it fades from being washed, it goes brown. It was like really nice stuff, like great, cool t-shirts and like some pretty unique jackets, especially the one with like the dog clip, the one I'm wearing here, especially this one. It was really cool, and I used to love wearing it all the time, but then they'd turn brown. With like sun exposure and being washed all the time, they go brown.
Eat my ass. Eat it fast. Eat my ass.
This song. Oh man. When people bullied me for being too pale and weird all my life, but now I'm a successful vampire influencer on TikTok. Well, congratulations. I don't know what TikTok success honestly looks like these days. You see, I remember when being goth on the internet, being goth on social media, or trying to be an influencer goth was not so easy or accepted. A lot of the attitudes that people had towards seeing goths walking down the street, which thankfully has become far milder. It used to be violence. Elder goths, do you remember this? Just walking down the street wearing makeup or black clothes and you get followed or stuff thrown at you, a lot of stuff thrown at you, people trying to fight you, hurling abusive words at you, and then online was like the only place you could escape from this kind of stuff, and then the elitists found the internet, and they were like, ooh, I get to gatekeep here, yay! But man, back in the day for social media, like there was a time where influencers, normal influencers, normie girls, were getting all sorts of brand sponsorships for like makeup and clothes and stuff. They were getting paid. They were getting paid for stuff. And if you were alternative, then brands would stay the hell away from you. Like back in 2014, 2015, you could not get a makeup sponsorship where you get paid to advertise a palette or a brush set or something. They wouldn't do it. They would not do it. And I've literally seen emails from these companies saying, we do not want to be represented by this alternative lifestyle. Can you believe? So you had to really want to do this. And this has honestly been one of the reasons why I don't like brands like Killstar and all these other alternative brands. They don't pay their creators. Killstar, as far as I know, have never paid anybody, ever. All they do is give you free shit. That's all they do. They never, ever, ever pay you. In fact, back when I was the biggest goth on YouTube, I emailed them saying, you're going to have to start paying me if you want me to continue doing these hauls. And they said, we'll get back to you. And they never did. Back in the day, man, you'd see like Sephora and Morphe and like all these other brands paying big bucks to normie girls to advertise all their products. Meanwhile, the goths, who should have had their brands looking out for them, like Disturbia and Killstar and Black Craft Cult, whatever the hell they're called. Since the goth influencers were not getting paid, they were not able to succeed thanks to the glass ceiling that was put in place. They should have been there to step in and be like, here's a Killstar partner program where you get paid or you get a commission, or here's some free stuff, and also because you can't pay rent with free stuff, here's also a payment. Since, you know, as a brand, we pay for advertising everywhere else, we're also going to pay you because it's also advertising. They don't do that, but whatever. Thanks for coming. Bye.